Hello and welcome to a special Brickfair Virginia episode of Beyond the Brick. I'm Joshua Hanlon.
And I'm Matthew Kay.
And we'd like to thank Philly Brickfest for their support of Beyond the Brick. Philly Brickfest will be held at the Philadelphia Expo Center on September 12th through 14th. It is a public event with many hands-on attractions such as the LEGO video game area where you can challenge your family or make new friends playing your favorite LEGO titles head-to-head. And you can find more info at brickfestlive.com. And I'll make sure to include a link to them in the description of this video as well. Now, we do have a special Brickfair Virginia episode for you. We got John Rudy joining us on the show, and you might remember him. We have had him on the show once before. I'll make sure to include a link to that interview in the description as well, so you can check that out and hear some more about John and his buildings that he's done throughout the years. And so if you want to start off then, John, first off, it's great having you on the show. And
Great to be back.
Definitely. And then if you want to start off with telling us a little bit about what you'll be bringing to Brickfair this year.
So personally, I've had kind of a trough year. I try to build, hills and valleys. This is a little bit of a trough year. I'm not doing a massive build, but I'm part of some massive builds. And that's really the exciting thing that I think is coming to Brickfair this year. And really the head of a wave that's been building for the last few years is a bunch of different big collaborative builds, a bunch of folks getting together at previous events and figuring out that we have shared interests, and then coming together to build large-scale models. We did something like this last year with the Civil War Collaborative, and we're doing that again with the Civil War Collaborative. The large-scale build that we're working on is actually a diorama of the Battle of the Wilderness, which is going to be a huge 8x4 baseplate wide, 4 baseplate deep, 8 baseplate wide diorama of the southern end of the battlefield at the Widow Tap Farm. Gary Brooks is taking lead on that, and then we're all contributing small chunks of it. Makes it a little bit more manageable. So I'm doing 32 of the base plates. Gary's doing a heck of a lot of them, along with the rest of his family too. Gary's really cool. He's got a building family going on. He and his wife and their 2 sons all build. So you're going to see little chunks of the family all throughout that model. And then we're also building. We're trying to build 1864 in general. So the Civil War in 1864, what was going on during that year. I've got one model that I've built that's certainly counts on a lot of people's scales as massive. I've started thinking of that actually as kind of small, but it's a diorama of John Brown's fort in Harper's Ferry and the colored troops marching by it in the spring of 1864. So that's what I'm bringing. But I'm more excited about what I can see when I go and visit what's going to be there this year, because there's a lot of really cool-looking stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of incredible builds there, and Matthew has been going there for, what is it, 5 or 6 years now, is it, Matthew?
It's 2008, whatever that is, yeah.
Okay, so quite a few years now, and I'll actually be there for the first year this year as well, with my brother John, who does the video work for us. So we'll be doing videos similar. If you've seen our Brick World coverage, we'll be doing those videos similar to that at Brickfair. So definitely looking forward to seeing a lot of cool builders there and all the cool builds they're bringing. Now, John, do you have that? Can you show us your build real quick with your?
Yeah, sure. We're gonna go for a ride now. So here you're looking at pretty much the scale of it. This is it's a depiction of John Brown's fort, which was a fire engine house at the Federal Armory in Harper's Ferry before the war. But the Federal Armory had to close, being right on the border between 2 warring nations, not really where you want your gun factory. So John Brown used that as his bastion of freedom in 1859, and then by 1864, the same U.S. government that jailed him and imprisoned him for trying to raise up black troops in a war against slavery actually hires black troops to fight a war against slavery, and that's what this scene is depicting. Is some of those new black troops, the 19th United States colored troops, marching past John Brown's fort in 1864.
Okay, very impressive build. Yeah, really great. Love that we've got it all laid out there with the buildings and stuff.
I know I'm seeing 2 things here that's kind of standing out to me, and this might sound absurd, but I've built things in dark red before, and dark red arches are not easy to come by. And then also black minifigure heads. not easy to come by either. Where are you sourcing these two parts? Bricklink? What's the strategy?
Okay, well, first of all, this is one of the fun things I can do because we're on video. I can actually lift this up to show you. The whole guts of this building are completely snotted because those arches don't exist. You have to go with the inverse arches there. So the whole building is completely snotted together, which, parts availability makes you do weird and crazy things.
Damn it, John! That's brilliant.
I know. See, I'm not as crazy as I look.
No, and the best part about using the inverted arch is that it doesn't have that awkward gap in it. It looks clean.
Yeah, and complete accident that it does look clean, because that was just me saying, I need this part, how do I get this part? And ordering what was available on Bricklink. Awesome. So the other half of your question, those brown minifig heads, look at the direction that you're looking at this mock from. Do you notice anything about all of their heads?
They're all turned away from you.
If you come over here and look outside of camera angle, I'm not sure if the lighting is good enough, but you'll notice that a lot of those heads are blank. In fact, the front rank is basically the only folks who have faces. So just using the angles that visitors are going to view this from helps to cut down on the cost. Partially that's also, I personally don't like using a lot of the different brown minifig heads, particularly from the basketball sets. Because
there's eccentric face patterns.
Exactly, they look a little too cartoonish. Definitely. So I've chosen just to use the plain brown smiley, and then the Lando head with the mustache. Kind of two very plain-looking heads when I do use the heads with faces on them.
But another thing, I really like that tree in the back. Nice, I've got that snotted tree kind of technique.
I stole that technique from some.
Was it Tim Gold and Mike Piazza or something on Australian Builders?
I think so. I saw some Australian event pics, and it was just this brilliantly simple design. Now he built it in gray, because the clips and the hinges don't exist in brown. I've kind of made the trunk brown and just ignored the fact that the clips are black and dark gray for now.
I mean, it could be like knotted branches or something, yeah.
And we'll just wait for Lego to come up with the right parts to fill in that gap. So.
Exactly.
But I'm really excited about how the mock came out. Just there were a few accidents of innovation, the fencing and the arches. That I'm really excited how things came together. So, there's a bunch of good pictures of that on Flickr as well. So you can kind of dive down inside of all the weird corners of the mock, and then when you're there at Brickfair, you can take a real nice close look at it, and you can spin it around and check out some of the corners. Not just you, but anybody that comes.
Awesome. For sure. Yeah, so that'll be a great build there, and then also, like you said, there's the whole Civil War collab going on there, so a lot of cool stuff you'll be able to see.
Yeah, and if you want to check out what Gary and his kids are starting to pull together, Gary on Flickr is Gary_the_procrastinator, and his son Josh is JB Ironworks. And the two of them are really powerhouses, building some amazing models. So.
For sure. Now, you also had a few builds you put together as some stuff that caught your eye that will be at Brickfair this year. So if you want to talk about a few of those, we can let people in on some of the cool stuff that'll be there.
Yeah, actually, talking about the Brooks family, they're also big castle builders. And originally when I saw this, I saw LOR and thought Lord of the Rings, and wasn't that jazzed about it because I'm not a big licenses person. But then realizing it's actually one of the clans on Classic Castle has gotten together and are bringing a bunch of their mock vignettes to the event, including the Brooks family, and it's Lands of Rowia, which I don't really follow the castle realm that much, but there look to be some really impressive builds in these. Some irregular dioramas, so instead of keeping it on square base plates, building in odd shapes around the edges. And then there's going to be a massive diorama the same size, actually larger, than the Civil War collaborative built by one person, by Josh, the Sultan Maldrake's fortress that looks like it's going to be really, really impressive. So there's going to be some great stuff happening over in the castle realm. And then there's other collaboratives that are kind of coming back too. The Pharaoh's Labyrinth will be back, a little bit truncated this year because a few of the members had life get in the way, which always happens. But Pharaoh's Labyrinth is going to be back as well. With right now there's 7 MOCs registered, but I'm sure there's going to be a few more that'll be floating in there as well. So that'll have our adventurers kind of bingo spot covered.
Yeah, that's a theme you don't see a whole lot of builds in these days, so it's interesting to see those all together.
Yeah, well, it eats up a lot of tan brick. So you have to kind of invest in one color if you want to build in the adventurers realm. We haven't branched out into the sub themes of adventurers quite yet. It's still solidly in Egypt, and I think it's probably going to stay there because those guys have dumped quite a bit of cash into buying those tan bricks.
Not cheap.
Well, it's not that it's not cheap. It's just that once you dump the cash over there, you really can't liquidate those bricks to hop over and get some dark green or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really tough to transition a collection from one MOC to the other without just buying a new collection.
Yeah, you never think about that. Yeah, space builders have a lot of blay, or I would imagine castle builders the same way, right? Town builders, maybe lots of dark colors. Lots of sand colors, realistic building tones. Yeah, you kind of sink your hearts in whatever you're into.
I buy earth tones, so the insides of all these MOCs are nothing but lime green and orange, because I have absolutely no use for it anyplace else. But if you ask somebody else, they may use only lime green and orange, although I can't imagine what they'd be using it on, and would throw away their dark green,
Yeah.
God forbid. But talking about those space builders that have like gray sitting around in scads, Adrian Drake's going to be there as well, and you guys got a chance to see his bender.
Yes, yeah, that was awesome build. They had that right when you walked in the door at Brick World there. A really incredible build. We actually have a video of interviewing him about that build on the YouTube page, so if people are interested in seeing some more about that, if you can't make it to see it in person, I encourage you to check out that video. He shows off all the moving parts and everything.
Yeah, it's really exciting. He's going to be he's taking it on the road. So here it comes to Virginia, which is really kind of cool. And I heard that that Nixon's head is coming with it as well.
Are they doing Simon that helped build that? Yeah.
Yeah, so we will have President Nixon visiting as well. So that's a really exciting thing. As soon as I saw that MOC, I was hoping that Adrian would be bringing it along. So I'm glad.
It's nice that he's been kind of hitting Brick World and Brickfair,
Yeah, and that's it's the nice thing about how Brickfair has been evolving, is that Brickfair has started becoming kind of a partner event, and even to the point that now the organizers are starting to mock fight about how much money they can raise for their charities. Brickfair is the Slave Children. Yeah, and healthy competition is always great, and it reminds me of a long time ago in the community when there was a lot of healthy competition and a lot of joshing competition and folks shouting out space and trains and castle at various events, and it's nice to see some of that camaraderie start to flow again within the community.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So some really cool stuff there. Now there's a few other. I know there'll be a lot of military builds this year. Is that right?
Well, that's the nature of where we are in the country. We're outside of D.C. It's a military contractor world in Northern Virginia. So you have lots of people that are building either real or imaginary military vehicles. So there's tons of them in the MOC registry. When you hop in, and if you're a registered attendee, you can look through all the MOCs, and you can start to see that there's. If I got to the M page, and military puts M and then whatever year after for this, that, or the other thing. So the M page went on forever, because there were so many model whatever of this plane or that car or this Jeep. So it's really cool to see the sheer amount of military builds that show up there. Probably more so than someplace like Brick World or some of the other events, just because of where we are and what the interests in the local area are.
Yeah, and I would almost be willing to say, like, maybe Brickworld is like a train convention, you know? Like, there's a lot of trains in the Midwest.
Mhm.
It seems to me like lots of people love building high-quality train layouts in the Midwest, so I don't know. Kind of goes together.
And we got 1 or 2 of those on this coast, so, you know, don't put all of that in the West, you know.
Oh, no. At Penlug, you know, they pretty much are the train layout at any convention ever, so, you know,
Yeah.
they're at both, so, yeah.
Penlug puts together a really classy layout out here. But we also have, who is arguably the king of American military builders, is Magnus.
Yeah.
Is basically, this is his home event. And he's our military coordinator at Brickfair, so it's exciting to get a chance to hang out with Magnus for a lot of folks that build military builds. So I think this becomes a keystone event for really the military builders. Some of us building in the 19th century, we kind of get shunted over here in the corner. For those that are building the really cool jets and the amazing helicopters that I, you know, as a self-professed historian, should be able to tell you what they are, but really can't.
It's interesting that, like, now you mentioned military builders, but there are also military builders like really high, well-regarded names from Europe. Like, was Ralph Salzburg? Has he been coming to the event for a couple of years now?
Ralph has been coming on and off as his American trips have started to overlap. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be able to come this year,
Not this year?
which is unfortunate. But you know, Ralph's both an amazing military builder and then an amazing just large-scale vehicle builder, and that's what he's been driving on really recently. So I'm sad that we're not going to have him at the event, but I basically you know, threatened him that he's got to come back next year because he can't make it this year. So I'm hoping he can come back, and I promised him a battlefield tour if he can make it. So he can scratch the geek itch of the military geek in him too. So.
Oh, that's cool.
But kind of on that same wavelength, there is one build from Lego WW2 Master Ian that's registered. It's again one of these massive builds. It's, you know, 4x7 32 stud base plates, and it's going to be the Battle of Anzio, which from World War II is an amazing undertaking. I'm excited to see what comes out of that build too. There's just some very large scale stuff that we see hit, particularly in that military realm, because of, you know, where we are and who we've got.
Mm-hmm. No, you mentioned, I think, a couple different times here that you're really excited about the big collaborations that are happening this year, and that's something you're seeing more of at Brickfair. So is that something that they've been, you know, actively pushing over the years to try to get more collaborations going on at Brickfair?
I don't know if it's actively pushing it. Todd is very, very friendly to collaborations.
Okay.
When he's doing his planning process, he'll actually ask for collaboratives to be put into the system. When you register a mock, you can register it as one of the collaboratives, and then basically that allows him to set up the space ahead of time. So he knows exactly what's going to come in on those 7 tables, and he can kind of budget for them and set them aside. So it's a pragmatic reason to like collaboratives because it means a lot more pre-planning, but Todd's great at that. And he's done a great job of kind of fostering it, but not pushing it too hard. We've been the geeks who have been pushing it and saying, hey, build some Civil War stuff. Hey, you know, join in this group or that group or the other group. And it's a ethic that's been in the Brickfair kind of DNA since the beginning. We've had some of the team builders were building the post-apoc collaboratives. Now, some of those didn't get finished until, you know, Sunday afternoon of the event because they were collaborating on the fly sitting there.
Part of the fun!
Yes, that is part of the fun. But it's part of the DNA of the event is this collaboration, and I think that we've just been kind of augmenting and crafting that DNA into something a little bit larger. And the event is anything but just mocks, too. I mean, it's just like the other large LEGO events. There are your typical roster of a bunch of people doing speaking engagements, doing some talks, and you know, large-scale Q&As, and then there's tons and tons of games in the event schedule as well. So I think that those also add to that atmosphere of this being about fans interacting with fans, and one of the things you have when you have a bunch of creative people interacting with one another is we start figuring out ways to create together. It's almost natural.
It's bound to happen. And
Exactly.
this year, what is there? There's an extra day, right, of the whole private expo?
Todd made us all smile at the end of last Brick Fair when he said, "I'm thinking about adding an extra day," and the crowd went wild. So we have a new extra day. What was our half day on Thursday is now our half day on Wednesday. So we have a whole full day on Thursday. So setup begins at noon on Wednesday. So if you're one of those people that can't make the event but surf all of the streams, all of the Flickr and whatnot for photos of the event, you're going to have to start a day earlier. So you're going to have to waste even more time at work looking at all of those photos as they pop up there on Flickr, or as Josh gets videos uploaded to the Beyond the Brick channel.
For sure, yeah, definitely keep an eye out there. And that was actually something I was going to ask you about, having gone to the event for a few years now, like you have. What is there like a event or maybe something that happens every year that you always try to make it to? Are there any talks that caught your eye this year that look like they'd be interesting?
Okay, so I am not a disinterested party in this because I'm running one of the events. So I always love the parts draft. So anyone out there that wants to do something fun, the parts draft is always great. No, but seriously, the parts draft is, to me, one of the highlights of any of these events because it's this great opportunity to kind of get to meet a bunch of people all at once and forge connections very, very quickly because you're all competing, but you're all competing in a spirit of joviality. You know, we're all going for that pile of extremely rare bricks. But afterwards, if I could tell you that I need 5 of them, we can work out a trade, and you can get this helmet and whatnot. It's a really great way to get to know people. A lot of the folks that I've been in some of the jambalayas with, or later hooked up with on Flickr, are all folks that came out of the parts draft world. And this year's parts draft is going to be 2 of the Lego movie sets, actually. We're not drafting 1 set, we're drafting 2. It's going to be 1 copy of the Western glider, and then 1 copy of the melting room, exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be 1 and 1 to kind of get a good balance of parts and minifigs in there. So it should be a fun event. But that's always, again, it's those moments where you can come together with a bunch of different fans and just kind of be there with the brick.
And there's nothing like sorting out Technic axles with somebody to really build friendships, you know? That's how real friendships are made.
And forge what the language is, too, because we all have, no matter what the Brinklink words are for these bricks, we all have a different word for everything. So we start arguing with each other. Hand me those. Yeah, I've never understood chiclets. I'm not even going to get into chiclets because it doesn't quite make sense to me, but that's okay. Yeah. So I'm partial to things like the parts draft, but there's tons of other stuff. Particularly, the event leans towards board games. So there's lots and lots of board games, both Lego versions and then Lego versions kind of tweaked. So either you're playing on a Lego game board, or more so this year, you're playing for Lego prizes. So things like Settlers of Catan, Munchkin, Small World are all going to be in the mix. And the Lego Harry Potter, the Hogwarts game. There's a checkers tournament. There's a poker tournament. There's all sorts of kind of typical board games that we're all geeks. We all like relatively the same things. And if you don't already like Settlers of Catan, you've never played it before.
You need to play Settlers of Catan because you'll probably like Settlers of Catan.
Exactly, that's what the odds are. So it's kind of playing to the demographic, if not specifically to the brick, which is really kind of cool too. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice few days. Now it's 5 days of just playing, just getting to play either with brick or with people that like brick. And there's also all of those the great talks and the great panels and that sort of thing with a bunch of really big names.
And I don't think we get to listen to Kevin Hinkle not answer our questions this year.
Yeah,
in person.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we don't have that opportunity to listen to him not answer our questions. But one of the cool things is that to kind of augment the event, because he's not going to be there, probably not because he's not going to be there, but I'm looking at it as kind of the value added, is the World of Lights that Todd has shamelessly stolen from Brick World, another one of those friendly rivalry things. But they're going to dim the lights in the Dulles Expo Center and let us all light up mocks there as well, which is really easy for people that build a building, really easy for people who build a moon base. It's a little bit tougher for those of us that build a battle diorama to try to figure out exactly how we're going to light it up.
And especially like a Civil War battle diorama? Yeah.
Yeah, we intentionally chose the south end of the battlefield of the wilderness because it's the more tactical part of the battle. The north end of the battle is actually where there was a giant fire and men burned to death. Now, that would have been an opportunity to use lights. Might not have been all that tasteful, but an opportunity to use lights. Here, we're a little bit flying blind. So we're going to have to use our imaginations. We might just use spotlights to show the events that are happening in the woods versus just, the twinkle lights that you mostly think of for these things.
Mm-hmm. Use the spotlights to help accent certain areas of the build.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I may put Christmas lights on top of John Brown's fort. We'll see. So.
Never know, something like that.
He did have a nice big bushy beard at Harper's Ferry, so.
For sure, but yeah, that World of Lights is always one of my favorite things to see at Brick World every year. So I'm sure it'll be equally cool at Brickfair as well. It's always neat when they turn off all the lights and you can see all the. Especially some people spend a lot of time working on the lights on their builds. It shows when they do the World of Lights, and you can tell that they really laid it out well, and it makes it look really cool.
What's cool is a lot of the vendors are helping to support it too. So for folks that are in the event, they can get discounts at I think everybody that does lights basically with certain codes. And Todd has been sending those out to event registrants. So hopefully we get a lot of folks that are playing around. But it is the first year, so we'll see what happens. It's exciting though to see new things and different things come to each of these events that work at the other ones.
Mm-hmm. Now, another build that I wanted to make sure we mentioned so that people can keep an eye out for photos and videos coming of it from the event is Chris Giddens' massive spaceship that's going to be there this year. And if you saw our interview with Chris a few months back, he showed that off a little bit in the interview. But that'll be, I think, completely finished there at Brickfair this year. So did you see how much room that's taking up, John? I don't know if you can tell that on the layout.
Yeah, he's got that registered for one full table, which really frightens me because that means it's going to be massive. But I'm a big fan of pre-classic space. I've loved the stuff that Chris did a while ago on that with the nice curvatures, and it's just those ships have beautiful lines. So I'm really excited to see what he's got cooking for us. He's calling it Atlas LL43. So that's probably the best way to search out those photos when they start hitting the webs in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, I know a lot of people who maybe don't make it to that area of the country or something very often when they're going to Brickfair. Is there anything you'd suggest outside of the convention that you always do, like when you go every year, or restaurants to hit, or something like that for people who might be going for the first year, things that they should make sure to do?
So you shouldn't ask me about restaurants to hit because I navigate by food, but we won't even go there. If you're not going to be in the area again, if you're never going to be here again, the thing to see when you're at the Dulles Expo Center is right down the road, is the Udvar Hazy Center. It's the National Air and Space Museum's satellite location at Dulles Airport. Really, really cool place. Most of the hotels that are right there servicing the Dulles Expo Center have shuttles that head over, so you don't even have to pay the parking fee they've got over there, so it's free. You go in, they've got the Enola Gay, they've got a real spaceship. They have one of the space shuttles on display there.
Concorde, right?
I can't remember. See, I'm so enamored by the Enola Gay and the space shuttle that everything else just kind of blurs together for me.
There's a lot of stuff in that.
They have a Blackbird there. They have a bunch of really, really cool aircraft there. So if you're a plane geek, that's a place to go. But if you're just a general history geek or a good, warm-blooded American, head on over there. But it's a really, really cool museum, and they do a great job over there of showing some of those pieces. But then we're right outside of D.C. So again, if you aren't going to make it back here, if this is going to be your only time in the area, head on down to the district and take a look at the mall. Go visit Abe Lincoln. Go visit Jefferson and wave hi to Martin Luther King while you're down there too. Go sit in Einstein's lap. That's one of my favorite monuments because it's a monument you can touch. It's out in front of the National Science Foundation. You can actually sit in Einstein's lap. Only he's got a book open explaining his theory.
And go eat at a Chipotle in downtown D.C. with other overpaid 20-somethings working in tech.
There are great restaurants in D.C., but I'm also partial to Ben's Chili Bowl up on U Street. So if you find yourself on the Metro, head on up to one of those local institutions.
Yeah, it's right near that station, right? Yeah.
Yep. So I mean, there's tons to see. D.C. is a tourist mecca. So if you need a break from the Lego, which, let's admit it, a lot of us need a break from the Lego every so often with these long events, there's a lot to kind of hop over to and then hop back to the Expo Center.
And now, John, speaking of hopping, I would imagine you'd be in on this since you're kind of a local. Is the Silver Line going to be open by the time of Brickfair?
Silver Line ain't gonna be running. No, project hasn't been completed yet, and even when that is completed, it's only gonna go out to Tyson's Corner. So
it's not gonna be at Dulles for another like 4, 5, 6 years, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the phase 2, unfortunately. So it's gonna be still a little bit of a jog to get into the city from the event now. But the good thing is, once you are in the city, you can get to the Lego store at Tyson's Corners really easily. That's once the Silver Line is up and running. But yeah, it's going to be a while before being out at Dulles is a really great location for us to send folks down into the city and see the other Air and Space and the National History Museum and the Natural History Museum.
Yeah.
Those are all a little bit tougher to get to. So it's going to be tougher especially for our team set to head down and see those really cool things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely encourage you. Like you said, Washington D.C. so much awesome stuff to see there. I'm planning to spend after the convention ends, we'll stay an extra day and probably spend a day in Washington D.C. while we're there. So that should be really cool.
Yeah, and there's too much to see in D.C. for one day, so you're gonna have to come back to next year's Brick Fair too, Josh. That's just how it's gonna work out. But yeah, it's a very cool city, and it's a lot of people might not realize this. It's a very friendly city, both getting around wise, as long as you're not afraid of a little bit of traffic, and then just in general, the folks in DC aren't ornery. They'll typically be able to help you, even if they're laughing at you for being a tourist every so often.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of awesome stuff happening at and around Brick Fair this year. Is there anything else that you think we missed that you would say is a must to do while you're at Brick Fair?
There's not all that much. We have lots of good vendors and that sort of thing. There's a few that have become favorites of us because they cut prices dramatically when the public hours end. And we've also got the garage sale, the yard sale that happens, where anyone can bring stuff and become kind of a momentary vendor. So there's deals to be had there as well. Even though we don't have the events that happen at the stores with the discount, you can still find some good lower priced brick. I got a giant bag of minifig hands, yellow minifig hands. Probably 300 or 400 of them for a couple bucks last year. I think Matt, actually, I think you made out like a bandit on my deal there when we worked out a trade for
the minifig hands.
Yeah, for a few hundred of those minifig hands.
Oops. I built a spaceship with them. Did you see?
Yes, I did. It was very weird. Handship 1. Yeah.
Nice. I won't do that again this year, John. I promise.
Well, it depends on what weird part that I find in the yard sale that you desperately want. So, but yeah, there's lots of fun deals and that sort of thing to be had there too. So make sure you line your wallet with a few extra bucks before you come out to the Expo Center.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of great builds, great vendors, and great builders to talk to as well there. So we'll definitely look forward to seeing you there, John, and your Civil War build and the rest of the Civil War collab, as well as everything else we've talked about here. And like I mentioned, we will be making a lot of videos with interviews with builders and their builds there. So make sure to keep an eye on the YouTube page here and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of that. And then I'm sure there'll be many people posting photos throughout the event as well. So we appreciate you watching. We're looking forward to hitting Brickfair Virginia here in a couple weeks, and we'll see you next week.